Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL 44 coming at you another video. All right. So, when it comes to this idea of what the Lakers should be willing to move on from now that they have Luka to I've been listening to people talk. And the thing that I really think we should be cautious of is trading away the catch and shoot talent on this team. You don't trade away Dodo. You don't necessarily trade away Austin unless you believe that he's going to be somebody who has issues playing off ball in this situation. You definitely do not trade away Dalton Connect. You do not trade away Dalton Connect. Because what you end up having right now is players who need what Luka provides and Bron provide together, which is to catch, shoot, and create space for those guys. So Rui potentially holds a lot more value, seeing how he played last night in catch and shoot situations, how he looks when he's asked to take 8 and 9 shots, 10 shots. You want those passing targets on your roster for your offense. And you don't want to shrink the floor for Luka and Bron, especially since Bron is not a reliable three-point shooter. He's going to do a little shrinking himself. Vando is going to do a little shrinking himself. So you want to keep your shooters in place. Maybe even improve upon your shooters at this point. So that's what I want to say. I've been listening to people and they're like, oh, to get our center, we have to give up Rui and Dalton. Hell no, we ain't giving up those players. I respect the importance of getting the center right now, and they're very important. But for the long-term building of what Luka's team is going to need, you're going to need guys who know how to catch and shoot very well and defend very well. And so pieces like that mean even more to us now than they did before we did this. And that's what I see there. I think with the way this team is constructed right now, I think Rui may actually hold more value to this roster, because now you do have Anthony Davis jetsoning out. So that's one less power forward. So now you potentially have an opportunity to give Rui more looks. The offense is opened up a little bit in theory for his position. I think Luka's obviously going to take more of those possessions. He's gonna probably shoot more than AD did in most nights, but he's also going to look for people more. His game is predicated around people finding people in the pass. Same thing with Bron. So it's like, I think Rui can be his efficiency is going to stay where it is. His usage may go up, in my opinion. It may go up. Now, you do have to worry about the defensive side of the ball, and maybe that's the argument for moving on from Connect and Rui and Austin, because at the end of the day, they do, on paper, come together to make one of the worst defenses in the league. When you consider Luka Doncic is a terrible defender, Connect's a terrible defender, Austin is like poor, Rui is below average. So it's like that makes for a very bad defense, but a very elite offense. So if the argument is to make it so that we're not completely deficient around Luka Doncic defensively, then I can make the argument that makes sense to move on from these dudes. But for the sake of the spacing in the offense and the ability to just be absolutely elite on the offensive end, I see value in Dalton Connect. I see value in Rui Hachimura that I didn't see as much on a team with AD. So I do agree that we need a center bad, like super bad. And so the logic is sound for trying to move some of these pieces that we don't need as much for a center. And maybe it's going to take Rui and maybe it'll take Dalton to get that center. But I just don't want to give up Dalton Connect. And I see him as one of the most prized possessions of a guy like Luka Doncic going forward. One of his most important players throughout the course of what it is that he does. You need that piece to catch and shoot, play well off ball, to cut well off ball. So it's like, these are the type of things I think are going to be so important for Luka Doncic when you consider what his team's supposed to look like when you build going forward. Dalton Connect, his piece means the world to Luka Doncic's game, in my opinion. Why do you think Dallas went after a guy like Klay Thompson? Because they wanted the dynamic that ultimately Dalton is going to develop into. So Dalton is a no-brainer hold-on-to piece at this point. I'm not trading him at all, because I see him as one of the most important pieces to Luka Doncic's prime, if I'm being completely honest with you. one of the most important pieces to Luka Doncic's prime. Person on tab with his timeline, essentially since Dalton is 23, 24 years old. Luka's 25, about to be 26. The timeline aligns very well. And that's where the future is for me, is Dalton Connect, Luka Doncic, and whatever else we put together, which I'd imagine is going to be very good if we can do it right. So, yeah, certain pieces just I value a little more now. And the centerpiece that we're bringing in is more of a short-term piece in theory, especially if you get a player who's in his 30s or whatever. Or if you get like a Robert Williams who could retire any moment. So that's my thing. I just think that we need to readjust. One of the reasons why we were willing to move on from Rui Hachimura is because the redundancy of having Bron wanting to play the power forward, AD wanting to play the power forward, Vanderbilt, Christian Wood potentially playing the power forward when he comes back. Obviously, Dodo playing the power forward. You just have so many of them. But you move AD out, and now suddenly that's not the dynamic. So if you move on from Rui Hachimura, one of your more reliable scorers in this situation, are we not certain that doesn't affect us in a negative way for what it is we're trying to build both long and short term? That's what I'm not clear on. So there's something to be said for trying to make sure that you don't give away pieces that fit Luka, while trying to make this team that has short-term issues complete, when you could potentially be rebuilding, as to which you may be able to get a center, but you may not be able to find a Dalton Connect. You see what I'm saying? That's my thing. I think the center position is very important for the short term of this year's roster. But we ain't competing for a championship with this year's roster because we've depleted it a little too much to actually see that as realistic. So it's more so about what we can do to make sure that we bring pieces along that are going to align with the future that maybe if we can get lucky can help us right now. Some of those pieces are in place. And given the fact that we gave up Max Christie in this deal, I think that it makes a lot of sense to try to make sure that we don't do any more in that way. Don't give up anything that you can legitimately see around Luka Doncic in the future. So that's my take. I don't want to give up Dalton Connect. I'd much rather not give up Rui. Austin, I'm out, not out on, but the jury is now out because I think you now find yourself in a situation where you don't get the most out of Austin because he's not going to have the ball in his hands as much. Luka's going to control the pace. Luka's going to control everything. Anything that Luka don't control, Bron will. Or vice versa. However we work that out. And while Luka is hurt, your team may be able to utilize Austin a bit more. But he becomes a defensive deficiency when you consider if you're not able to utilize his strengths. It's sort of like what I said about Rui. If you can't utilize his strengths, now you just got him on the floor for the worst of them. And that's what we don't want to do with Austin. So to me, I don't know that I don't need Austin's strengths as much as I need him not to be bad defensively at this point with the way this situation is now currently constructed. Maybe I trade him for a high-level center. So that's what it is. I mean, this sucks when you think that way. We value Austin Reeves very much, but it's like we just have to reimagine our team now. You have to reimagine your team. And I don't know that you make these type of decisions without actually knowing what it looks like when you have these pieces together. But given the fact the trade deadline's 5 minutes away, I don't know if you feel you have, if it is in your best interest to wait past the deadline to do certain things. I don't know how you feel about that. So, and then I have to ask myself realistically for this year's timeline, is there a chance I'm gonna shut Luka down anyway? Is there a chance we shut him down? Because it's no secret, he's not in shape. It's going to take a year or so for him to get in shape. He is suffering multiple injuries and stuff like that. He has had high usage over the last several years, played deep into the playoffs last year. Do I really need him to put his body on the line this year when I know I brought him here to kind of take over my future? Wouldn't it be better for me to invest in him getting in shape? See, that's something I've been thinking about as well. I could very easily just get him on a program that gets him in shape, shut him down for the rest of the year, and just put him on a nutrition and workout program and then have him ready for next year, and have him lose like however many pounds would be respectful for that situation. That makes a lot more sense when you consider why Dallas gave up on him and what ultimately he's bringing to the table for the rest of the year. He ain't in shape. And if we're going to invest whatever we're going to invest in him and ask him to carry this franchise forward, I'm not interested in him potentially putting himself out there to get hurt this year when the team ain't even constructed properly to compete. He means too much to our franchise. So I don't know how Luka obviously has some, you got to try to get him to buy into that. And at this stage in his career, I don't think he would be. We see him as a 25-year-old. He sees himself as a grown man contender who just played in the finals last year. He don't probably see nothing wrong with himself, and that's probably the point. But if I'm Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, I got to pull him to the side and say, listen, bro, you everything is on you. So if you're not in shape and you're not intentional on being in shape, you're going to be moved again. And we're going to get the return for you that Dallas should have. That's exactly how I'm looking at that. So if you want to have a future with the Lakers, you don't want to be the superstar that keeps getting traded because he's fat, you're going to take this program I'm going to have you on. Straight up. Like, that's how that's going to be. And if he ain't with it, then we start filling trades for him. We move him soon. And for the rebuild return that ultimately sets our situation where we want it to be. But that commitment is going to be necessary, bro. That's going to be necessary for Luka to Don. And I think you should want that, man. You got to prove Dallas wrong. They just let him go. He is way too great. He's the greatest player they ever had. Respect to Dirk Nowitzki. He's the greatest player they ever had. And they let him go because they didn't believe in him. If that's not a motivating factor for getting somebody in shape, I don't know what is. And so at that point, I'm looking at him. I'm saying, yo, you want to prove these people wrong? Or are you cool with this? And if you're cool with this, then we're going to move you somewhere else. And we're going to get back a bunch of picks. But as far as I can tell, you should be interested in getting in shape, bro. You should be interested in proving all these people wrong. You should be interested in taking care of your body to extend your career. Because we have ample evidence of people doing the same thing you did and not having a very long career. So what's it going to be? And if I'm LeBron James, I tell him the same thing, bro. Listen, I've been exactly where you've been. LeBron James look at me in the eye and say, I know I've been exactly where you've been. I know exactly where you're at. But the difference is I'm still around because I took care of myself back then. LeBron didn't start taking care of himself at 27 years old or something like that. No, he was taking care of himself the whole time. And that's why he's still around at 40. So Luka can believe in himself and think that he can get away with not working. But once you start getting around somebody who's as great as you or greater than you, who's accomplished more than you, who's still doing it years past what you're projected to because of how you're taking care of yourself, and you see them still outworking you, then it becomes embarrassing in theory. It should be embarrassing for Luka Doncic at 25 years old to be getting outworked by LeBron James at 40. And so that's what I think this could potentially be for him. The last 2 years of LeBron James' career is going to be talking some sense into Luka to Don and showing him what real work ethic is. Because at the end of the day, with all due respect to Dallas, he wasn't around nobody that was teaching him that. He ain't never played with nobody that's going to challenge him that way. He ain't never played with nobody who's going to challenge him and look him in the face and say, you're not greater than me, and I'm still going to outwork you 15 years older than you. You see what I'm saying? He ain't never been around that type of person. So that's what he seems to, in my opinion, need. Is somebody who is great enough and has cachet enough to challenge him to do the work so he can extend his career and get the most out of himself and prove Dallas wrong. And that's what it is. LeBron James is a mentor to Luka Doncic. One of the few people that Luka Doncic should look up to still, should want to pattern himself after still, and should respect still. That's what this should be. I don't know if LeBron's up for that. I don't know if Luka's up for that. But if Luka wants to get the most out of his career, he'd be wise to listen to a guy like LeBron James on how to do that. Pride cometh before the fall. I'll tell you that. If you can't listen to nobody, it's going to be very difficult for you. The path gets very hard. So that's why I tell Luka Doncic, man, this should have been a wake-up call for him. And it was rather embarrassing that they would receive such a low return for him. Shows just how little they thought of him, in my opinion. He should have a problem with that, a real one. And the only thing that's going to prove them wrong is him not playing well, because that's something he did while he was fat, but getting in shape to prove that he was a mistake and letting go of like that. That's what I think is getting back at them. You could go for your same averages and send the Lakers to the finals and all that, but if you're still fat and still having injury issues because of it, or still out of shape and all that, then you prove them right. So ain't nobody arguing he's not a good player. They're just arguing he's not a good investment because he ain't going to take care of himself. He needs to take care of himself. And let this be the motivating thing that gets it done. So, yeah, we're going to have a lot of conversations about Luka the Don, man. We ain't done here. This is a Pantheon great player coming into our organization after being casted away by the only organization that ever had him, send him in for half the price. We're going to talk about this for a year, probably. So get used to this conversation, y'all. I appreciate everybody for watching BDL 44, and I'm out.